and petty the left in America really is. And also tonight, we're monitoring a very serious situation out of the Middle East. Today, Israel launched a large-scale aerial assault against multiple Iranian targets inside of Syria. Now, this, of course, after the Israeli Defense Forces say that Iran fired over a dozen missiles into the Golan Heights. We'll bring you the very latest on this very tense situation. Plus, President Trump just wrapped up a rally in Indiana. We have the highlights. We also have so much news out of the deep state to bring you an unholy alliance between Mueller and Comey. Vice President Pence also calling for Mueller to wrap up this witch hunt. And finally, Vice President Dick Cheney, he came out swinging in defense of Gina Haspel and enhanced interrogation programs that she oversaw. He was right. We're going to show you all this and more in tonight's very important, we're glad you're with us, breaking news opening monologue. All right, the president just wrapped up a huge, raucous, fun rally in Indiana. We'll bring you all the highlights throughout the show. Here's just a small sample of what went down. Take a look.
If we would have told you during the campaign that we would create 3.3 million jobs in this short time, everybody back there, the fake news media, look at all of them. They're fake news. Everybody back there would have said, can you imagine? He's saying we're going to create 3.3 million. Can you believe it? And you have to work every day between now and November to elect more Republicans so that we continue making America great again. And by the way, this is the first for Indiana. Our new slogan for 2020, you know what it is? Keep America great.
All right, we're going to have more on the president's rally in just a moment. But first, a great day for this country and our fellow countrymen. Why? Because early this morning, a plane carrying 3 of our fellow Americans who had been held hostage in North Korea for months, they touched down in Joint Base Andrews. Our prayers were answered. These 3 men came back in good health, and we should all be proud of the outstanding work this country did to bring our fellow Americans home. President Trump, he met the 3 former hostages on the tarmac and delivered these hopeful remarks about 3 a.m. in the morning last night.
We want to thank Kim Jong-un, who really was excellent to these 3 incredible people. They are really 3 incredible people. And the fact that we were able to get them out so soon was really a tribute to a lot of things, including a certain process that's taking place right now. And that process is very important. So we will see what happens. We have a meeting scheduled in a very short period of time. You'll be hearing about it soon. We have the location set, and we will see if we can do something that people did not think was going to happen for many, many years, and a lot of bad things could have happened in between.
Now, this was a very important diplomatic victory. We know the danger that these 3 Americans faced because we saw what happened to Otto Warmbier. Remember, he was the American college student. He was held captive in North Korea, which ultimately caused his horrific death. And the Warmbier family, they remain in our prayers tonight. And tonight we have a reason to feel hopeful and proud. 3 American lives were likely saved, and we didn't have to bribe Kim Jong-un or send pallets of cash to North Korea to get the job done. But some in the mainstream media, as corrupt as they are, they barely yawned today. The New York Times initially buried this story. The ABC News, well, they used the historic of development to criticize President Trump on Iran. Then there's, of course, the liberal senator from New York, Chucky Schumer. He was less than pleased. Really? 3 Americans saved back home? You're not pleased? You're not happy? Take a look at this.
The exultation by the president and others of the greatness of North Korea doing this evades me. We can't be fooled into giving the North Korean regime credit for returning Americans that never should have been detained in the first place. American citizens are not diplomatic bargaining chips. Their release should not be exalted, it should be expected. It is no great accomplishment of Kim Jong-un to do this. And when the president does it, he weakens American foreign policy and puts Americans at risk around the world.
Amazing about this. A friend of mine, he's a great doctor, he's a brain surgeon, talked about this earlier, and he said, what a jerk. And this comes from one of the smartest, brightest brain surgeons in the world. Pete, you're right. All right, this is one sad case of Trump derangement syndrome. Truckee, it's okay to be proud of your country. Lives were saved. And while Schumer is whining, President Trump is continuing his push for peace, ultimately in the Korean Peninsula. Today, he made an important announcement. He tweeted, quote, "The highly anticipated meeting between Kim Jong-un and myself will take place in Singapore on June the 12th. We will both try to make it a very special moment for world peace." And of course, we can't predict the future. And Kim Jong-un is, frankly, an untrustworthy, unpredictable despot. But look where we are now. Given all of North Korea's concessions, we have reason to be cautiously optimistic tonight. As the Korean Peninsula is now progressing towards peace, tensions in the Middle East, they're rising. As we reported to you last night, the Israeli Defense Forces announced that Iran, in fact, fired over a dozen missiles from Syria into Israel from their installations in Syria. No casualties, thankfully, were reported. The Iron Dome intercepted many of these projectiles. And just hours ago, Israel rightfully responding in a massive way, launching a full-scale aerial attack against Iran's forces in Syria, and they took out dozens of military sites, anti-aircraft batteries, and reportedly killing dozens of those that are committing these acts of terror. And unlike many countries, Israel can never put their guard down. They don't have that luxury. When it rains on Israel, there will be a flood on Israel's enemies. Now, this conflict with Iran is no different. In fact, Iran's involvement in proxy wars all over the Middle East has long been a threat to the security and the peace of the Israeli people and, of course, American troops that are stationed in Syria, Iraq, and elsewhere. You have the mullahs of Iran have long been chanting death to America, death to Israel, burning our flag, burning their flag. And they back up those words by what? Funding the most radical terrorists in the world, sending trained fighters all over the Middle East to kill our soldiers in Iraq and our ally soldiers. This is a chief reason for the current military strikes in Syria and likely played a very key role in President Trump's right decision to pull out of that horrific Iranian deal. Now, just a few moments ago, the president wrapped up this rally in Indiana. He spoke about Iran and North Korea and so much more. Take a look.
And on June 12th, in Singapore, I'll be meeting with Kim Jong-un to pursue a future of peace and security for the world, for the whole world. But you remember everybody in the fake news where they were saying, he's going to get us into a nuclear war. He's going to get us into a nuclear war. And you know what gets you into nuclear wars? And you know what gets you into other wars? Weakness. Weakness. I think it's going to be a very big success. But my attitude is, and if it isn't, it isn't. Okay? If it isn't, it isn't. But, and you have to have that because you don't know. We're not going to be walked into an Iran deal where the negotiator, John Kerry, refused to leave the table. Obama, President Obama, paid $1.8 billion for hostages. You, not me, you, last night you saw it. And again, it's leading to some very big things. And I think that Kim Jong-un did a great service to himself, to his country by doing this. But those hostages came out with respect. We didn't pay for them. We're going to set the table. We're going to make a great deal for the world, for North Korea, for South Korea, for Japan, for China.
Now, while the president is touting some of the very key developments on the world stage, the vice president, Mike Pence, he is now backing him up right here at home. During an interview earlier today, the vice president told ABC that it's time for Mueller's witch hunt, and I agree completely, to come to an end. Take a look.
Our administration has been fully cooperating with the special counsel.
Do you think his investigation is a hoax?
And will continue to. What I think is that it's been about a year since this investigation began. Our administration has provided over 1 million documents. We've fully cooperated in it. And in the interest of the country, I think it's time to wrap it up.
Time to wrap it up. I agree. And meanwhile, according to some stellar reporting, again from our own Sarah Carter, we know that the fired former FBI Director James Comey, the one Rod Rosenstein said to fire, he actually consulted with Team Mueller before giving any testimony to Congress about its inquiry into Russia. Can anyone say collusion or collaboration inappropriate? Now, Judicial Watch has actually acquired the emails that show coordination in these efforts between the Office of Special Counsel and the disgraced former FBI director. In other words, you have deep state news here. Remember last night when we reported the meeting between Rod Rosenstein, Intel Committee Chair Devin Nunes, and Oversight Committee Chairman Trey Gowdy? Well, that meeting was classified, but it was supposed to address the DOJ's ongoing stonewalling, slow walking of documents that have been subpoenaed by Congress. And then they give the phony redactions. And then they delay. And then, they say no. But according to a brand new article from Sarah Carter, this could be just an effort to buy time for Sessions and Rosenstein. We'll have more on this later in the show. This stuff is not funny. The American people have a right to know. The Constitution gives Congress that oversight responsibility. Make no mistake, we on this program, we will hold the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, and anyone else actively obstructing constitutional congressional oversight accountable. And finally tonight, we have new developments surrounding the confirmation process of President Trump's pick to head the CIA. Her name, you see her right there, an amazing appearance before Congress, Gina Haspel. Now, Democrats are opposing her because they think the enhanced interrogation program she oversaw was too tough on terrorists like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the guy that was the mastermind behind 9/11. Former Vice President Dick Cheney, he's not buying it. He's dead on accurate. Earlier today, he came out swinging. Good for the former vice president. Watch this.
What we did was, in fact, consistent with our fundamental statutes and agreements that were in place, and it worked. I think what we did helped ultimately produce the intelligence we needed to be able to get bin Laden. If it were my call, I would not discontinue those programs. I'd have them active and ready to go. You tell me that the only method we have is please, please, pretty please, tell us what you know. Well, I don't buy that, and I think the techniques we used were not torture. So now people want to go back and try to rewrite history. But if it were my call, I'd do it again.
Of course, the Vice President, Dick Cheney, is right. The interrogation of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, it led to the Courier. That Courier led us to where Osama bin Laden was. It is time for Democratic senators to put the safety of you, the American people, ahead of their personal hatred of President Trump. We need to confirm people, heroes like Gina Haspel, as soon as possible. Without a doubt, she is an American hero. She is the right choice to lead the CIA. By the way, Claire McCaskill, where are you? Heidi Heitkamp, where are you on this? We need a strong CIA, one that does not use the weapons of intelligence against the American people, like we have been exposing on this program. Joining us now, NRA TV contributor Dan Bongino, Fox News contributor Daniel Hoffman, Fox News national security strategist Dr. Sebastian Gorka. We'll start with you, Danielle Hoffman, tonight. I interviewed Jose Rodriguez. He was there. I don't like airing the tape anymore because I've aired it the last 2 nights and I look 30 pounds skinnier. But in all seriousness, he was there. The information that led to the Courier, that led to bin Laden, came from that enhanced interrogation. We wouldn't have gotten bin Laden without those techniques, which were medically supervised at the highest degree of safety, although they didn't know it.
Right, Sean. There's a couple of points here that I would highlight. First of all, it's an uncomfortable truth for those who didn't support the program and don't today that, yes, it actually did work. You can debate the morals and the ethics of the program, but it did work. We did obtain significant intelligence, not just on finding bin Laden, but other al-Qaeda operatives as well, and we stopped threats against our nation. Could you imagine if we had these techniques and they were approved, and we had someone in detention who knew about a threat, and an attack took place, and afterwards, post-mortem, we were asked if we did all that we could and used all of our capabilities, and we replied that we did not? I think those same congressmen who were grilling Gina Haspel would have confronted us over dereliction of duty.
Let me go to Dr. Gorka. Dr. Gorka, this is one of the most important issues that's facing this country. And look, it was the law at the time. Also, it was under the highest level of medical supervision. We are not, as some of these Democratic senators suggest, we are not the enemy. Now, they might not have known that it was medically supervised, but they didn't need to know that. But in the aftermath of 3,000 Americans killed, we needed information about what else might be coming, what dangers exist, and I think she and others did America a great service here.
This woman is a patriot and a 30-year-plus veteran of the intelligence community. Personally, and I'm not going to go into the details, I have some issues with enhanced interrogation because of the danger it can lead to of people fabricating information to get you to stop doing what you're doing to them. But look at the facts. We're talking about 3 people, Sean. We're talking about interrogations that led to the saving of lives, undoubtedly. And the last point is one of honor. All of these people were fine with these techniques, and all of these people were fine with this woman when she was acting director and never questioned her integrity or her morals. And that is despicable that these cowards now do a volte-face and are attacking her for exactly the things they approved of after 9/11.
Yeah, well said. Let me, Dan Bongino, turn to other topics. President Trump showed military force after missiles were fired over Japan and threats to Guam and even the continental U.S. President Trump put sanctions on North Korea. President Trump mocked the North Korean dictator. The media, the Democrats, said he'd start a nuclear war. What have we had so far? We have concessions. We have 3 Americans home safely today. We never thought we'd see Kim Jong-un cross the DMZ into the arms of the South Korean president. We see now the possibility of the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula in total. We have seen other concessions. This is an amazing, teachable moment for peace through strength, is it not?
It is, but President Trump will get 0 credit because the I got to be careful on that. I get really upset, Sean, because the think tankers and these swamp rats, these slobs who've been in power forever, who followed these structured paths of formal diplomacy, they've had their bow ties on, they've had their cocktail lunches. They're the ones laughing at Trump right now, despite the fact that he's got results that none of them could get. They think he's some kind of a Neanderthal cretin. They followed all the formal paths. They played by all the rules. And you know what Trump did, Sean? He came in there. He wasn't used to these rules. He was a builder from Queens, and he said, wait, let me get this straight. There's still nukes on that peninsula, despite all the smart people telling us how to get rid of it. He was unpredictable, and he's the one who got results, and he won't get an ounce of credit for it amongst that class.
You know what? As he said, he just wants to solve the problem, which, by the way, I remember Winston Churchill said, blood, toil, tears, sweat, victory. That's our goal. He said, the president today, right. I want the world safer, which then brings us to the Israelis, Danielle Hoffman. They had to strike back. You cannot allow the Iranian forces and mullahs to fire missiles from Syrian bases into Israel and not have a massive price to pay.
Yeah, the viewers will recall that no matter the threat, whether it's an Iraqi nuclear program in the 1980s or a Syrian nuclear program, which Israel destroyed in 2007, they don't hesitate to take the threats off the table. They've got exceptionally strong intelligence capabilities, and in this case, the Iranians presented an existential threat to them from Syria. Frankly, Sean, I expect Israel to continue to mount those sorts of operations to keep their citizens safe.
And let's stay a step further. I think the president, by withdrawing from this horrific $150 billion idiocy of Barack Obama, Dr. Gorka, is showing the world America's back, America's leading on the world stage. This is a very important message, I think, to send the world, whether our European allies like it or not. I frankly don't care.
They're going to toe the line. I'm sorry. They're going to moan and moan, but within weeks they will follow our lead because we are the only leaders out there. That's how it worked for the 20th century, and that's how it's going to work under Donald Trump in the 21st century. Yeah. That's power politics. And the bottom line is very simple. You don't give in to dictators.
Well said. All right. Thank you, Dan Bongino, Daniel Hoffman, Dr. Gorka. We have a lot of news breaking tonight. Ed Henry, live at the White House. He has brand new details about President Trump's upcoming meeting with Kim Jong-un. Also, we have huge news on the deep state with Greg Jarrett, David Limbaugh, Sarah Carter. Two big breaking stories tonight. That's all coming up.
Kim Jong-un did a great service to himself, to his country by doing this. But those hostages came out with respect. We didn't pay for them. We're going to set the table. We're going to make a great deal for the world, for North Korea, for South Korea, for Japan, for China.
That was the president, another huge, enthusiastic crowd talking earlier about the release of these 3 American hostages from North Korea and his upcoming high-stakes meeting with Kim Jong-un. Now, the president's remarks come as we are learning more details about that meeting. Joining us live tonight from the White House, Fox News chief national correspondent. Every day seems to be a slower news day than the previous one. I was watching your great coverage tonight, but last night, Ed, I watched all night. I didn't go to bed till 4:30 as I predicted.
Well, I knew you would be watching, and it was an important moment in American history, as you note. And what's interesting is we did learn some important new details today about this summit with North Korea. The president himself confirming that it will take place on June 12th in Singapore. And insiders are telling us that location was picked, a key reason being that 2 weeks before the summit, Singapore will also host an international security conference that will bring together leaders from all around the world, particularly American and Asian leaders. And as you heard the president say there at that rally in Indiana, he hopes it sets the table for success on June 12th. And he's hoping, of course, to build on that win last night in the middle of the night, personally welcoming home 3 Americans previously incarcerated by the North Korean dictator. Yet Democrat Chuck Schumer objected to the president giving Kim Jong-un some credit for the release and also again attacked the president for pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal earlier this week. Well, that set off the president earlier today. He tweeted, quote, Senator Cryan Chuck Schumer fought hard against the bad Iran deal, even going at it with President Obama, and then voted against it. Now he says, I should not have terminated the deal, but he doesn't really believe that. Same with Comey. Thought he was terrible until I fired Comey. Now, there was a back and forth on the Senate floor, Schumer going off on the president, while tonight at that rally, the president responded. Watch.
I worry that this president, in his eagerness to strike a deal and get the acclaim and a photo op, will strike a quick one and a bad one, not a strong one.
Do you remember everybody in the fake news where they were saying, he's going to get us into a nuclear war. He's going to get us into a nuclear war. And you know what gets you into nuclear wars? And you know what gets you into other wars? Weakness. Weakness.
Now, at that rally, the president also predicted success for an agreement with North Korea, but stressed yet again, we've heard him say this before, that if Kim Jong-un does not agree to denuclearization, the president said he's going to walk from the table in Singapore, Sean.
All right, Ed Henry at the White House. As we spoke about in tonight's opening monologue, Fox News contributor Sarah Carter, she is out with a new report. Tonight is entitled, Former FBI Director Comey Consulted with Mueller on Russia Testimony. Here with these details, Sarah Carter, investigative reporter, also the author of the soon-to-be #1 New York Times bestseller. Look at this title, The Russia Hoax, the illicit scheme to clear Hillary Clinton and frame Donald Trump. Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, also with us, author, attorney David Limbaugh. Full disclosure, David Limbaugh has negotiated every single TV and radio contract in my life. and I once actually had dinner with him, like maybe 40 times. Good to see you all. Sarah, let's get to this breaking news. Now, I'm trying to understand this. Is this collusion? Were they coordinating? What happened in this meeting? Because on every level, my instincts tell me this is beyond inappropriate.
Well, to a lot of people, it appears beyond inappropriate, Sean, and I think that's a big concern here. What we do know is, based on these emails, this is the first time we've seen evidence of this, that Comey actually met with Mueller, with his team, before giving testimony to the Senate Intelligence Committee. Remember, that was his famous testimony where he talked about leaking the information to his professor friend at Columbia University, who then later leaked it to the New York Times, with the intent of calling for a special counsel. I mean, all of this is so fascinating. And I think right now what Congress is doing is trying to put all the pieces together. Why did he talk to Mueller? Who was he speaking with? Why were they preparing this testimony this way? And this is very, very concerning to everyone involved. I think another really important bit of information that came out tonight was a meeting that Devin Nunes had at the Department of Justice. And what we've discovered from this, you know, they've been fighting for information on a specific individual.
This was supposed to be classified, though, right, Sarah?
Absolutely. It's supposed to be highly classified information. But what I'm hearing tonight, and in a story by Kimberly Strassel from the Wall Street Journal, which just published, there is concern that the FBI actually had a spy within the Trump campaign. And this is very jarring news. It would fall... Yes.
What? From what? Wait, no, I want to remind our audience. March 8th, 2017, Sarah Carter, John Solomon on this show told the world that there was a FISA warrant on the Trump campaign. Nobody believed it. We've been proven right again and again. Now you're saying that there could have been an FBI spy within the Trump at what point? Campaign? What point?
That's what they're looking for right now. I contacted sources about this. I know one of the issues that they're looking at is whether or not what the time frame was, whether or not this person was somebody that was paid for by the FBI, whether they were delivering the information to the FBI. I know right now that the majority of this information, believe it or not, was leaked by the DOJ themselves in an attempt to keep this quiet, to not give up the information that the congressional members wanted.
That would explain why they don't want to hand anything over, why they slow walk, why they give us phony redactions in the name of national security that don't pan out, why there has been stonewalling and obstructing of Congress. Let me bring David Limbaugh in. David, this is very troubling, especially what Sarah knows, that there was coordination between Mueller and James Comey. From a legal point of view, is that appropriate?
Let's call it collusion, if we may. You know, I think we need to look at this. Sarah, being the journalist that she is, one of the few around, didn't really give her bias and her opinion in her great article today about this, which I read on this to prepare. But people need to make of this what it really is. Why, if the charge of the special counsel is to find the facts and determine the truth, does he take an advocacy role and coordinate with the FBI, former FBI director, and communicate with him and strategize about timing? If they're really above board, if they really want to find out the truth, why not just tell the truth? Why doesn't Mueller just say, Jim, tell the truth? That's my advice to you.
How about
Instead,
he should have used his lawyer?
They strategized about time.
He should have communicated,
yes,
not directly. They're never going to tell us what really happened. All right, let me go to Greg Jarrett. If Donald Trump or anybody in the Trump campaign did this, this would be all over the news. Collusion, coordination.
When Comey testified right after his firing before the Senate Intelligence Committee, he admitted that he had met with a special counsel, but he left the impression that he'd been interviewed in a legitimate inquiry. Now we're beginning to see a different picture, that there was actually special treatment and coordination with his old friend, partner, and ally, Robert Mueller, as if they were getting their story together in the anti-Trump crusade that Mueller is now waging, having taken it over from Jim Comey.
What is the name of your upcoming book?
This really is the greatest hoax in modern American history.
Is it the biggest abuse of power, corruption scandal in our lifetime?
It is subverting the rule of law, seeking to undermine democracy itself. They never had a legal basis for it. They pursued it, and they're pursuing it still.
Sarah, David, and Greg, you guys have all been amazing, and you played a big role in all of this. We are going to follow Sarah's stories very closely in the days and weeks ahead. Pretty scary. We've been right so far. All right, when we come back, the great one, Mark Levin, is going to weigh in on all of this. That's next.
We're putting the harshest, strongest, most stringent sanctions on Iran. I hope to be able to make a deal with them. A good deal, a fair deal, a good deal for them, better for them, better for them. But we cannot allow them to have nuclear weapons. We must be able to go to a site and check that site. We have to be able to go into their military bases to see whether or not they're cheating.
That was the president earlier saying the United States of America must never, ever allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. Here with reaction, he is the host of CRTV, Levin's TV. He is the host right here of the #1 show, Sunday nights, 10 p.m. and all of cable, Life, Liberty, and Levin. And I call him the great one, Mark Levin. You know, one day I'm going to put you on and talk about the story. I forced you to do radio. Let's be honest about this. I don't want to do it. And I made you fill in for me and made you work for free for a year on weekends. And that's one of the highlights of my career, my friend. How are you?
And see that? The world's never been different.
Listen, Mark, when I read The Judge on Friday, I thought of you. Years ago, you wrote an incredible book. It's called Men in Black. And you wrote the Liberty Amendments recently, and an American tyranny. What's Liberty versus Tyranny?
So many of them.
Okay. No, these are all great books because you're a constitutional scholar. You see what is happening. You heard what that judge said Friday. They're putting the screws to Manafort. It has nothing to do with collusion. They want him to sing. Be careful, because he may not just sing, he may compose. And I was proud of that judge because that judge nailed it. And now you see Sarah Carter's report tonight. Comey and Mueller coordinating? Tell me why this is so wrong, and the audience.
Well, let's hope the judge is not just a gas bag and actually does something about what he said. Let's drag us all back, if we will, for a few minutes to the Constitution, okay? Because that's the bottom line, and this is where it's going to wind up. And the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General really have to answer some fundamental questions about this investigation. Mr. Mueller wants to interview the president, and he wants to interview him under the most onerous circumstances. What is the purpose of an interview like that based on those 49 general areas? His purpose is to indict the president. Now, what's the purpose of indicting the president? To try the president and to find him guilty. What's the purpose of a conviction? It's to remove the president of the United States from office. That's the bottom line. No president has ever been indicted while in office. Not one. No president has ever been forced before a federal grand jury. Not one. No president has ever been removed from office by the United States Senate and 2/3 vote of the Senate. Not one. Mueller's purpose, his purpose, is to remove the president. That means one man, got it, that means one man, one jury would usurp the power, the entire constitutional power of Congress, the power to remove a president. You can indict every other public official, a judge, for instance, while they're in office, and go through the impeachment process. You cannot do it with a president. And I'm going to tell you, I've been studying this for decades. I'm studying it now. Here's the authoritative book. So what's going on now? It takes 2/3 of the Senate to remove a president. Not one prosecutor, not one jury. So my question is, from a constitutional perspective, to Attorney General Jeff Sessions, it's time to step up. To the Deputy Attorney General, it's time to pay attention. To the entire country, to all the lawyers you bring on here, this that is going on here now, these fights over whether he's going to be subpoenaed, the president, whether he's going to answer questions, whether he can be indicted in office, I want people to understand that the framers never even contemplated what's going on today. They never contemplated that one prosecutor, a civil servant, a bureaucrat appointed by somebody else, would have the power to effectively remove the President of the United States. The reason why the Democrats are hanging their hat on Mueller, the reason why the media are hanging their hat on Mueller, they'll never get 2/3 in the Senate to remove this president. I don't care if they impeach him. They'll never get 2/3. It's never happened before. So what they're hoping to do is trap him in this notion of a subpoena and questioning, indict him, try and humiliate him, try and force him in front of a court, hope that they get the Supreme Court on their side, which I doubt they will, but you never know with these courts, and then get him to resign. That's their game plan. You heard it here first. This is very, very important. From a constitutional perspective, as I speak, Mr. Mueller is undermining the Constitution. He's not upholding the rule of law, whether he's consulting with Comey or consulting with Nostradamus. My point is this. What's going on right now is anti-constitutional and is undermining our system. The framers wanted the body politic to decide on whether or not to remove one branch of government, just as the body politic put that person there in the first place. The media are too ignorant, they're too liberal, they're too obsessed to understand this, but I'm hoping tonight with a few minutes here the American people will.
You know, I call you the great one. One of the best things or greatest accomplishments of my life was convincing you to fill in for my radio show. And it did take convincing. It wasn't easy. Mark, your knowledge of our framers and our founders and our Constitution is